We are in Pretoria, administrative capital of the Union of South Africa, and the impressive building before us is the administrative headquarters of the Union itself. It is ideally situated upon a hill overlooking the city, with terraced gardens that are a colorful tribute to the architects who designed the whole setting as an approach to the Capitol building. This architectural masterpiece was completed in 1913 in commemoration of the act which joined into legislative unity the four separate states known as the Transvaal, the Orange Free State, Natal, and the Cape Province. In the heart of Pretoria stands a monument to the renowned Paul Kruger, who was the first president of the Transvaal Republic. The house in which Kruger lived is now a museum, housing many items of interest concerning South African history. But this recently completed Voortrekker monument is the shrine that more fittingly commemorates the memory of the Boer pioneers, known as Voortrekkers, who pushed the boundaries of civilization into the hinterlands of the Dark Continent and founded the independent republics of the Transvaal and the Orange Free State. They traveled in covered wagons, as illustrated here, very much like the pioneers of North America, and they too fought and conquered the natives who stubbornly resisted them. Among the more valiant leaders of the Voortrekkers were Pieter Retief, who was slaughtered with several of his followers through native treachery, and General Andries Pretorius, who heroically avenged that tragedy. The city of Pretoria was named after him. The pioneer spirit to which this monument is nobly dedicated does not overlook the courageous Voortrekker mothers who traveled side by side with their husbands, sharing unbelievable hardships and stoically bearing the children who have lived to honor their memory. Although the native warriors eventually gave way to the invasion of the white man's covered wagon, many of their descendants have benefited by the transitions of time, as witnessed in this typical village not far from Pretoria. This particular tribe has endeavored to copy the architecture of the white man, and they have also appropriated the old wagons without the covers, drawn by long spans of oxen, just as it was done when the Voortrekkers first drove their covered wagons through this territory. Although farming is a full-time job for the men, the women, in addition to their domestic chores, manage to do a little business on the side by selling strings of colored beads to passing tourists. Incidentally, the word bead is derived from the Saxon verb bidan, meaning to pray. Although it was originally associated with the beads on a rosary, it has now been extended to mean almost any pierced object which can be strung. Their great diversity of form, color, and durability make beads most valuable for tracing the history of mankind, even back to the times of which no written records exist. So much for the history of beads. Now let's get down to the business of selling them, for a few cash customers have just arrived. Native life as it exists around Pretoria has been so influenced by modern civilization that we must travel farther into the interior to find the natives as they appeared when first seen by white men. These jovial gentlemen are citizens of Zululand, a vast native area in the province of Natal, where life in the remote sections has been affected very little by the influences of modern civilization. The size of a stockade and the number of cattle herded therein usually determines the wealth of a Zulu chief. The number of wives he has is also apt to be in proportion to the value of his animal livestock. By such standards, a very wealthy chief can maintain 2 or 3 kraals with 4 or 5 wives in each of them. A kraal consists of a number of huts, each occupied by one of the chief's wives and her respective children. Grinding corn, or mealies, is probably the most important occupation of the women. And although their children are undoubtedly just as dear to them as children are to mothers everywhere, they are left pretty much to themselves when it comes to growing up. Married women usually wear their hair in this fashion. And here again is the age-old occupation of stringing beads. En route to Durban, we pass through wide open country, replete with vistas that remind us of the vast unsettled tracts of fertile land, still awaiting development in the fabulous union of South Africa. And now our wandering has brought us to the shores of the Indian Ocean, which washes its warm waves onto the numerous beaches of South Africa, all the way from the Cape of Good Hope to its northeastern boundary line, providing the country with many of the world's outstanding seaside resorts, not the least of which is that of Durban. Aside from the local population, thousands of visitors from all parts of the world come to Durban each year for rest and diversion. Its healthy climate, along with warm sunshine, good bathing and fishing, have made it one of the world's outstanding pleasure resorts. As far as the kiddies are concerned, the star attraction of Durban is the children's swimming pool, one of the largest of its kind in existence. And behind the pleasure resorts of Durban is the city itself, which claims to be the busiest seaport in all of South Africa. Situated as it is at the crossroads of the world, Durban attracts a large variety of international goods, which are on sale in her varied marts of trade, making shopping here a most interesting experience. Rickshaw transportation is one of Durban's traffic oddities, which is destined to vanish in a few more years, for the city authorities have refused to issue new licenses or to renew old ones. There are two kinds of rickshaw services, one for practical everyday use, and one that is especially dressed up for the tourist trade, such as we see here. After a few years of service, dressed like barbarians in the centers of civilization, these fantastic rickshaw boys can usually make enough money to acquire a new modern wardrobe, return to their native kraals, purchase a few wives to work for them, and in the fairy book fashion, live happily forever after. Perhaps they're not nearly as foolish as they look. And it is here that we most reluctantly say farewell to Pretoria and Durban, wonder cities of South Africa.